Hi everybody, welcome to yet another video. So today we're having a little look at the Porphis PRD625 with a 1.3 tip, and I'm pitting that up against a Satajet 5000. That's a 1.3 with an RP setup. The reason for putting these two together is nothing to do with price. The Satajet is 3 times the price of the Porphis, but I was convinced. I actually did this video probably about 10-11 months ago. Actually it was this winter, I think, because I'm looking at the temperature. I do a little sheet when I do one of these videos. I do a little sheet and it just gives me the temperature and, you know, jogs my memory basically. So gives me a bit of a mind jog, and it's got on there 5 degrees Celsius. So it was in the middle of winter, so it was cold, and that's really these days where I draw the limit at 5 degrees Celsius, which is what, about 41 42 degrees Fahrenheit, something like that. No, not even that, is it? Yeah, around about 40, I think, something like that. So it's quite cold for painting generally. But I thought about putting these two together because when I use the Porphis PRD625 and the 715, so that's the non-split tip guns they do, it reminded me very much of the Satajet, simply because it's a bit of a blaster, and the Satajet 5000 is also a bit of a blaster. So I thought it'd be a good thing to put these two against each other. I thought about whether the 715 or the 625, but the 715 and the 717 actually gets quite a lot of publicity and a lot of people know about it. A lot of people buy them, and I thought, well, this is just as good a gun. It's a slightly different form factor. It's a little bit lighter than the 715. It's physically slightly smaller, not a huge amount, but it's slightly smaller. Having said that, it's a lot lighter than the Satajet, which is a heavy old gun, but it's also lighter than the 715. So it is different. It's different to hold and it's different to handle. But performance-wise, I think the 625 is just as good as the 715. So I think it's worth looking at if you want something that's just a bit different. They are cheaper as well. They're not loads cheaper. They're about $30 cheaper. So it's a little bit, not a lot. But certainly performance-wise, they're spot on, just as the 715 is. They also do a 627, which I'll try and remember to put a link in the description, because that's quite different. The split tip guns, which the 627 is, does spray quite differently to the 625. So we're using a U-pole clear coat, which is the 2080. It's the venerable old U-pole clear coat that I use. It's relatively inexpensive. It's not, you know, yeah, I mean, it's cheap basically, the U-pole clear coat. We're using it with an extra fast hardener, but it suits both of these guns really, in that you need to put it on. It needs to be put on. Somebody said to me once, you need to apply it for the finish. So you're not looking at it to run out particularly well, because it doesn't. Even when it's warmed up, which we do in this video, we warm it up using a microwave. And I do keep saying don't actually do that. So you shouldn't use a microwave, but it's how I do it. And by warming it up, it makes the viscosity, it makes it less thick. So it changes the viscosity of it, and it means it flows out better. So even when it's warm, the U-pole clear coat doesn't flow out particularly well, but it suits these guns because, as I said at the start, they're blasters of a gun. So it actually suits a gun that's going to put plenty of it on there, and that allows it to run out enough. Obviously you're always walking a line with clear coat. You're always walking a line between too much, which induces sagging or runs, and the right amount. But that's something that only experience will really tell you of using a particular product, so a particular clear coat and a particular gun. But as I say, the 625 and the 5000 RP, the 5000 RP is probably my favourite SATA, I think, at the moment. They've got a new one coming out called the Jet X, I think it is, or X-Jet, I think it is, which is a shame, really, because they're quite expensive, and it means I'm going to have to get one. But anyway, we'll see what that's like. I can't imagine it's going to be much of a diversion. But for the SATA purist, the 5000 RP is really the typical SATA gun. In that it does blast it on, and very rewarding to use and good fun. Something that the 5500 actually loses, I think. With the 5500, it's been sanitised to quite a degree, especially with the eye pattern, because it does make it slower and it just doesn't blast it on. As you can see while we're using it here, it just blasts it on, and it's really good fun to use. For those that like to take time over their clear coating, and I only say that because I know I swap quite a lot of messages with people about different spray guns and different application methods, and I recommend certain things, and sometimes it doesn't always go according to plan. You'll recommend something to somebody and they'll come back to you and say, you know, I went with that gun, but I find that I take a lot of time in preparation, and it seems to do the clear coating so fast that it's not particularly rewarding. So if you're someone that likes to take it slowly, you've spent a long time restoring a certain few panels or whatever, and you like to take your time over the clear coating, this gun or the 625 is not going to suit you really, because it does blast it out. But I actually quite enjoy that, and it's strange really, because most of my stuff is relatively small. I don't do complete cars or anything. Those that watch the channel will know that I've got a few panels which you see here, which are car panels, but most of the time I'm actually doing bike stuff. Although I've done a few more car bits lately actually, which I've done a few videos of, and we'll upload those over time. But most of it is bike stuff. So I shouldn't really like the guns that blast, but I just do, because they're just fun to use. And the 5000 is what I would think a SATA has the reputation of being. With the 5500, and I'm not sure about the X-Jet, but I would imagine that's very similar to the 5500. They've slowed it down a lot, and they give you the choice of an I pattern or an O pattern. This is more of an O pattern. Certainly a very wet pattern, puts out plenty of material in 1.3. A lot of people actually prefer a 1.2 for clear coat, just because obviously it does slow it down. But as you can see, it gives a really good finish, and it's good fun. I always questioned with SATA the price point of them. They're very expensive for what you actually get, in my opinion. But a lot of production people tell me that they're using these things day in, day out, and they stand up to the wear and tear really well. So, you know, for people that are only doing small parts every now and again, it's probably not necessary to spend so much on a spray gun. But going over to the Porphis 625, as I said at the start, I was sure that it would give the SATA a good run for its money, and I was absolutely right, because when you see the panels at the end, you really can't split the two. And I think actually the 625, one of the reasons for using the same panel, same clear coat, everything the same, is that you can actually look, when you see with the clear coat, when you see me do the final coat of clear on both of these, you can actually look and you can see how long it takes. So you will see which gun is faster, because what's meant by a faster gun isn't the fact that you know, the gun isn't self-propelled, so it doesn't move faster, but because it's putting out can put out quite a lot of material, it allows you to move faster. And that's what people mean when they say a fast gun. As I say, the gun's got no propulsion, so a fast gun is purely relating to what the painter sees. When you pull a trigger and you start painting, you see what material and the amount of material that's being laid down, and that way you can change your speed or distance from the work, because that will also make a difference. The closer you are, the faster it will wet up, but some guns need to be further away to get proper atomization. So it's often a bit of a compromise, and you do get used to using the guns in a certain way, but that's what gives it the speed. And both of these things are super fast. The PRD625 actually held its own. Well, it held its own against the SATA, no problem at all, and it's literally a third of the price, maybe even slightly less. And I think that I can't say it's going to last as long, but I definitely think it's going to last a long time, and it may well last as long. I've had my 5000 for about 5 years, I think now. The only thing I need to replace on it is, once I've had to replace the seal on the end of the tip, and once I've had to change, although it's unfortunate because you have to buy a pack of 3, you have to change the sorry, you have to change the baffle. If you try and remove the baffle, and I tried to remove the baffle because there was some rubbish under it that wasn't coming out effectively. So I removed it. You can, as a small tool, like a hook tool that SATA give you, to remove the baffle, and they do recommend that you change it each time you remove it. And when I remove it, there was a small bit that broke off it, but you have to order a pack of 3. They're only available in a pack of 3. They're not particularly expensive. I got them from Spray Guns Direct. They were about £22, I think, for 3 of them. But yeah, I mean, to actually effectively stick the thing in seems a bit counterproductive to me, but that's the only thing I've had to do, is change those 2 parts on it. The rest of it's been fine. Oh, and the battery in the gauge, because the 5000 I've got is a digital version, but you would expect the batteries to go every now and again anyway. So none of it's been a problem at all. But the the 625, I can't see it being a problem either. I've had this now about 1 year and 3/4. I don't use it loads. People will appreciate I've got a lot of different guns, so I'm always flipping and changing between different guns, but I do use it a reasonable amount. I've let it out to 3 different individuals who have given it a reasonable amount of use, and it hasn't caused any problems at all. There's been no problems with it whatsoever, as you would probably expect from a gun that's not particularly old. So in my opinion, the 625 performance wise is as good as the SATA, and I wouldn't mind betting that, I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't mind betting that it would last as long as the SATA would before it needed any repairs. But yeah, a really good gun for fairly little money, and it is overshadowed by the 7 series. The 715 and the 717, as I said before, are like the ones that are most prominent in people's minds, and people always seem to, when they contact me, they'll always say, you know, shall I get a 715 or shall I get a 717? And I point out to them that the 6 series is actually very good. There's quite a lot of difference actually between the 627, which is the split tipped version of the 625, and the 717, which again is the split tipped version of the 7 series. There's quite a lot of difference between those two, the way they perform. Now I'll try and put a few links in the description so that if you're interested in that, you can have a look at that. But as far as the 625 and the 715, I can't see any difference in performance of them at all. Both of them are very good. And there's a chap I know, hello John, if you're listening, who I lent my 715 to. I actually lent this 627 to him as well. I lent my 715 to, and he really liked it. He said it was obviously a very fast gun, and the 625 is a very fast gun as well. But he's using the 715 a lot because he actually went on to buy one. He's using the 715 for base coat and really enjoying it for base coat. So he's finding that actually a very good base coat gun. So I don't often use the 625, which we've got here, for base coat, but I would imagine that it's just as good as the 715, because in everything I've used it for, it's been as good as the 715 and does the same as the 715. And it's just a little bit more flickable because it's lighter, and the form factor is slightly smaller. So I find it probably a little bit more manoeuvrable than the 715. Not that the 715 isn't manoeuvrable, it's just that it is a physically bigger gun. But as you can see, it just it just blasts along and fires it out. Really good fun to use. Very, very good atomization, as you will see. It's not for everybody. Obviously you can turn it down, you can turn the fluid in the gun down. I prefer to keep it on full fan because I think most guns actually work to their best with full fan on. When you start to close the fan, I find that the atomization isn't quite as good. And I know some people, when you look at a fan pattern, sometimes people on the top and the bottom edges, you will get more of a less of a defined area. So in other words, it's not putting out as much material as in the rest of the fan. And some people don't like that, so they like to tighten the fan up slightly just to cut the top and bottom edge off to give you the same consistency of wetness across the whole fan pattern, if that makes sense. I don't like doing that because I always find it seems to cut down the atomization. So you will notice nearly all the time I use my guns on full fan, and it's just the fluid I will adjust and the air pressure. Both these guns we use the same. They're both used at 2 bar, full fan, full fluid, so the settings are exactly the same. But yeah, I mean, this thing is certainly, performance wise, is as good as the SATA. It's much cheaper, although you wouldn't know it to look at it. It is actually very, very well made. The brass thing you can see at the top there is just my adapter. If you've got an S9 PPS adapter or the cup that comes with it, they are a 1.5 by 16 millimeter thread, then you don't need that brass adapter. That's just the way I do it. It just makes all my all my Chinese guns that are 1.5 by 16, I use that brass adapter in there, and then it converts it to DeVilbiss thread as on the GTI Pro Lite, and it just means that everything I've got DeVilbiss will fit, and it's just an easy way for me of doing it. But obviously if you haven't got so many guns, you won't need to use it. But you can see the size of the pattern there. I mean, I always thought the RP SATA was a fast gun with a big pattern, but the 625 dwarfs it. So if you like them fast and you like them to put out the material, then definitely go for the 625. But the saving's worth it as well. Both you see here, these have been left for, I think it's 1 day. 1 day, yeah. So they've been left for 1 day. I try and leave them for 1 day or 2 days just to let the initial dieback come out, because we're using an extra fast hardener here, so you do inevitably get some dieback. But you can see both of them give a really good gloss level and a really smooth finish. So yeah. Anyway guys, thanks for watching as always. Cheers, bye bye.